One of the things I wanted to talk about last week, but unfortunately didn't get too much of a chance to talk about because most of it we were looking at, wow, um, those markets sure are a bit crazy. Of course, there would be a lot, I mean, a lot of consequences if those markets decided to tank. As we saw back in 2008, um, ripple effects like that can just ripple out across the world, causing, well, a potential global depression, which a lot of people still are, having on their bingo cards for this year. So, thank you very much for that, Donald Trump. You know, as I've said before, I promise, I won't become a full, Trump coverer stuff, but whenever he does stuff that affects us over here, I sort of have to cover it. It's kind of important. But one of the things I really didn't want to talk about is actually when you look at a lot of these tariffs and the way that Trump has sort of gone after this, you've got to look, of course, at someone like, well, Nigel Farage. Now, a lot of people, of course, were comparing the fact that what Trump has done was basically what Liz Truss sort of wanted to do, but in the reverse. Reverse tariffs, put everything at zero. Don't tax the rich. Again, they've just potentially passed that, although I think that goes into the Senate next week. Again, American system, not 100% sure on it. But that goes to the Senate next week. And if those tax cuts come in, that's going to have a lot of problems, certainly for Americans in the future. But one of the things that, of course, you may remember was, you know, when Truss was pushing this free market fundamentalist libertarian view, Farage was right on board with it. And people tend to forget that he was super on board with what she was doing. Praised it to no end. Even at the next election, the previous election we've just had in Italy just last year, he was in his manifesto pretty much pushing like this ultra super mega Liz Truss idea just on steroids. And you're like, but we saw what happened when that was implemented. Nigel, what are you doing? And what the key thing here is you are going to see what happened back in the 1920s. So the right may look, or at least the international right may at times look like it is, all together singing Kumbaya. But the reality is, those right-wing nationalists in every country hate each other with a passion. The ADF, Marie Le Pen, hate each other. Can't stand each other. Don't get along at all. You've only got to look at Italy and Hungary between Orban and not Meloni at the time, she wasn't in, but Orban and the previous right-wing Italian government they had tried to do this immigration deal where they sort of tried to close off this route. It lasted less than a week because they could not agree on who should take people attempting to make that passing, that crossing. They just could not agree. You want to look at an even more kind of strange and bizarre form of, two right-wing internationalists that do not get along with each other. Romania and Bulgaria hate each other because why? Both those two countries have like rival claims to like territory, so they do not play well with each other. That is why over the past really couple of years, well, decade or so, you've had this almost look that the international right was won. But the reality is, when you drill down and you have a look at what they are pushing, it is full of contradictions. But you look at what was going on in in 1920s? Why did Italy and Germany ally with each other? It was pure convenience. Pure convenience at the time. Their interests happened to align, so they aligned with each other. Mosley was modeling his group not after Germany, but what was going on in Italy. And then you have the whole thing about, well, why didn't Franco join the Axis? Same ideology, quote again, ideology, all that. No, because there were contradictions. They necessarily didn't agree, didn't get on with each other. So there was this just friction, and it still exists today. And just as we mentioned, some of the more modern examples. But these Trump tariffs destroyed relay, Farage. He started this week after these Liberation Day. Oh my God, it's so amazing, so wonderful. And then went incredibly quiet for the rest of it. Even, dare we say, speaking out against Trump, saying, oh, well, I think he's gone just a little bit too far. Very tepid criticism there from Farage, but, criticism nevertheless. But that is because Trump has become this ultra nationalist, autark protectionist. Like, I will, beg my neighbors. And then, of course, I want to look at, well, hey, Canada's got a lot of resources we can take. So too is Greenland. And the Panama Canal would sure be useful if we took it over, right? That's the direction that Trump seems to be going in. Meanwhile, of course, Farage might be, right-wing populist, but he's a slightly different shade of beige, shall we say. He is all about that free market fundamentalist idea that you have 0% tariffs, you have no regulation, companies do whatever the hell they want, and government has no say in it whatsoever. That's why ultimately there was that huge thing just a couple of months ago where there was the whole Elon Musk wanting like Rupert Lowe to replace Nigel Farage. And well, we all know what happened there. But that is it. And these tariffs have really, really broken this seemingly at once, purely through social media, this alignment that the international right had. Just as we have seen the war in Ukraine drive a sort of wedge between many of those supporters. You look at many people who have been questioned many, many times about why they voted for UKIP. Or not UKIP, Reform. A great many of those people who voted Reform are politically and socially conservative. They're not necessarily racist, but they are motivated by dissatisfaction with, of course, mainstream politics and most of all, public services. That is your average voter. The more extreme end, the people who are full-on racists, very small percentage of the party. Very small percentage of the party. But when push comes to shove, you start to see this, just as Mike mentioned last on the last Politics Social last Friday. We need to start hanging Trump like an albatross round his neck. Massively need to to do that as well, because Farage knows he needs his moderates to win. And the more he starts to play that moderate card, the more his extremists in his own party start to get agitated. They start to talk about, well, that Rupert Lowe would have been a far better leader. Or, oh, wouldn't it be great if, Tommy Robinson could join the party? And eventually, even his own party will fracture because he knows it. He knows it full well. This coalition he has is fragile. He knows it. That is why only Farage is ever allowed to speak. You'll notice that, because he knows if he lets other people start to speak, well, then they might say some different things. That's why if reform ever does get bigger, Farage, there's going to be no party discipline. There's going to be no party discipline, and it would fall apart very, very quickly. I mean, just look at the falling out with Rupert Lowe. You think Farage could keep another couple of hundred people together? I don't think so. But again, let me know what you think about this, because I think this is something that has gone on this week as well, that we sort of missed talking about, that sort of chisel has been taken now to the international right, that it once looked very united, but now seems to have fractured quite a bit. So let me know what you think down below. And of course, as always, we'll see you all next time.